it just got so bad. I just couldn't face the day anymore. And one night in November, one evening, it was about 9:30. I said, "That's it. I'm just gonna slip my wrists, and that's it. I'm done." It was about 9:30. I have to wait till 10 till they'll be asleep. Then I'll just go in the restroom and end it all. And so I turned the TV on, and Billy Graham was on TV, and he said, "Young lady in your living room, you need to go into your bedroom and ask Jesus into your heart." And he explained it.
Fall short, but I am sure there'll never be anyone like you. You're strong like your father, even when you were scared. When I was in trouble, you never left me there. And you love like your mother, like there's nothing to lose. You're an unsung hero, so I sing this song for you.
Yes, on Unsung Heroes, we're here with Miss Patsy Peña. Hi, Miss Patsy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Oh, great. Okay, so I just wanted to see how you're doing, and if you can just maybe tell us about yourself, where you're pastoring at, where your husband is pastoring at.
Right now, my husband and I are in Kingsville, Texas.
Okay, great.
And yeah, we've been here. In October, it'll be 9 years.
Wow.
And we are rebuilding the sanctuary part, because that part of the building was pretty old, and we were kept fixing the roof, and it didn't. It got worse and worse. So the church and my husband decided that it'd be a good idea to just throw it down. And it's been in a process for 3 years because of the, trying to get a loan, trying to get all the permits. And finally, now we have the structure up, and the outside is nice. It's done. We're working on the electricity inside and putting an AC, and then we can go in there and fix it up. We're really excited.
That's so exciting. So y'all are in the middle of a building project.
Yes.
Wow. And how long have y'all been with that building project now?
Well, it just started in it started like in May or maybe late April. That went quick. It was just the process of getting a loan and all that. That was like 3 years of work.
Wow. Okay.
You know how you helped me, Melissa, with all that.
Yeah, no worry. Yeah, it's quite a bit to get into a building project. But okay, Miss Patsy, so maybe you could just share a little bit about yourself for the people that don't know who you are, where you've pastored before, and then we'll go into your childhood maybe right after that.
Okay, where we've pastored before? Okay, well, the first time we were sent out, we were in Las Vegas, New Mexico. That's where we discipled under Pastor Richard Ruby. And we've always been the oldest ones in the church, at least 10 years older than everybody in the church. But Pastor was very gracious, and he sent us out to Española, New Mexico. I hear that the church is doing very good today. That was years ago. It was in I wrote it down because I forget, 1982. They send us to, I'm sorry, that's not true. In 1985, they sent us to, in 1982, we started coming to the door. And in 1985, Pastor Ruby came in, and he was there about a year or something. And he sent us to Española, our first church. And do you want to keep on going?
We'll stop right there, and we're going to go even further back now. Okay. So maybe you could tell us about where you grew up and what was your family life like, and how would you describe your childhood?
How would I describe my? Okay, I grew up in Montezuma, New Mexico. That's like about 20 miles north of Las Vegas, New Mexico, up in the mountains, hills, and real beautiful, beautiful country. My parents were, my father used to work in the mines. And he worked in Arizona in the mines, and in Pueblo, Colorado in the mines. But finally, he moved us to New Mexico, and we ended up in Montezuma. He bought a little place there, and we were the poorest family in that community. We didn't have running water in the house, and we had dirt floors there in the beginning, and it was. But that's a life. It didn't make any difference to us, because I mean, that's what we did. That's what we had, and he was a good provider, and he did his best, and. But as we grew up, he was able to get a good job, and he built a little house, and things started improving a lot. And I grew up there. It wasn't the best of the best, because my parents were not saved, and my father had issues, mental issues. And so it was a real hard situation, because we were all, with the family, was always walking on eggshells, because he would, blow up I guess now you would call it ADA, whatever, that problem. And so, anyway, I grew up, and I started going to high school, and I met my husband when I was like 9 years old, because we were in the same community. That's when we moved in, 8 or 9. And, so we went to the one-room school. That's in the early 60s. A one-room school, and there was 8 grades, and so that's where I first saw him, and believe it or not, I fell in love with him then.
Wow! Wow!
And so anyway, but
did you say that was 8th grade?
Huh?
Did you say that was?
He was in 8th grade. Yeah, I was like in the 4 years late of 4th grade, something like that. But anyway, we grew up in poverty, and I finally, after years, when I was 17, we got married. And then about a few years later, I gave my life to Jesus when I was 23 years old. And but I guess I could say I had a good childhood, considering now I see it back. It was hard, but at that time I didn't consider it hard. It was just life. That's all. You just go forward, and do what you have to do. And it was good. Okay, I guess I could say it was good. I did have issues with insecurity. I have had issues with insecurity and low self-esteem, but I feel it was because my father. I don't blame it on him, but because he had issues. He had his issues. But it's so important for a father to be gentle with his children, but he wasn't. He didn't have the capability. And so I grew up with that, very insecure. On the other hand, my husband grew up also in poverty. Both of us are the poorest families in the community. But his father was very affectionate. So he grew up very confident. He has a lot of confidence in himself. It makes a difference, I see back now, I understand all that. And I grew up as a teenager very angry, and I hated my father. And but when I got saved, the Lord dealt with me to forgive my father. But not only forgive him in my heart, because I forgave him in my heart. I said, okay, God, I forgive him. And then he told me, you need to tell him you forgave him. That was a very hard challenge to have to stand before this man that I had, years of unhappiness with, and tell him, and so the Lord gave me the words, and I thank God, and we reconciled. He forgave me. I asked him to forgive me too, because I wasn't the greatest person. I realized that, and so we reconciled, and after that, oh my goodness, we had a good relationship, and the affection. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I never had a father that would be affectionate with me, and of course, I was already in my early 20s, so it's hard to establish something like that. But he showed me love in other ways. So, and I knew, because after that, my father gave his life to Jesus. So it made a difference. I know he's in heaven today, and that's a really satisfying feeling in my heart, that I know that he's there, and he forgave me, and I forgave him, and everything's fine, to patch things up with your father. It's important.
That's good. How big is your family, Miss Patsy?
I have three
How
brothers.
big?
I have three younger brothers, and I was the oldest. That's it.
Okay.
Oh, and you want to find out about my family?
Yeah.
Oh, my family. Okay. I've got three children, 2 girls and a boy and a son.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And they're
Okay.
already out. I call him a boy, but he's not a boy. He's already an adult. They're all, my daughters are in their 50s, and Paul is almost in his 50s also.
Okay. And I know you said that you got saved when you were younger, but were you already married, or you were still single?
I'm sorry. Yes, I was married. We had been married 7 years, and the reason I got saved was because I was going to commit suicide. My life was so bad. I had already given up. I had tried everything, that the world says will bring happiness and fulfillment, and fill that void, that emptiness in your life. And I tried everything, the party scene, everything. I tried religion. I grew up very religious. We grew up Catholic, and I was very religious. I wasn't just a Catholic by name. I went to church every Sunday. I did all the rituals, everything, and it still left an emptiness in my heart. I knew about God, but of course I didn't know that I needed to receive him in my heart and repent. I would go to confession, and it never did anything for me anyway. But so when I was 22, I think, 22, my cousin of mine that was saved, he challenged me to read the Bible, and he challenged me because I was very devout believer in Mary. Okay, and so he challenged me. He said, if you find anywhere in the Bible that it says I should pray to Mary, I will pray to Mary. Okay, he says, you don't have to read it from your Bible, because I had a Catholic Bible. It's the hardest thing to read. But anyway, I read it. That's the way I am. I'm stubborn. And I said, I'm going to prove to you that you're wrong. Okay, he says, okay, I guarantee you. And I did. I read that book from one end to the other. It was the hardest thing. It took me a year. There's a lot of course, I didn't understand a lot of stuff, because it's a very hard. It was a 1965 Catholic Bible, and I read it. But it's something else, because even in that Bible, I started reading scripture that Mary had children, and little things like that, and it was a shocker. It was almost like the Holy Spirit pulled all those scriptures out and showed me exactly, and gave me the revelation in my brain, my head, and he made it possible for me to understand. And I started getting very angry at the church, and so I got to that point where, okay, my father failed me, and my husband was an alcoholic at the time. My marriage was a mess. And then
can you kind of just elaborate, like when you were younger and then now you got married? What was that like? How old were you when you got married, and what led to that?
I got married when I was 17, and well, actually, I was just turned 17, and my life with Jim was, I had gotten pregnant, of course, made all kinds of bad decisions, and I got pregnant, and we got married, and life was really hard, because of course both of us were unsaved and irresponsible. And Jim's always been a good worker. That's one thing. He always provided, but he drank a lot. And so there was a lot of issues, when drinking comes along, there's a lot of issues. And so we started arguing and fighting, and I got to the point where I started hating him too, because it was so bad. It was a very hard time. He'd get home late after midnight, and he'd demand breakfast. So I'd get up and make him breakfast, and he'd be arguing and angry because it wasn't perfect. And then he was good at getting up at 6 a.m. and getting ready to go to work. And so then again, it seemed like every day it was the pattern. And finally got to the point where I couldn't stand it anymore. By that time, we already had our boy, a little boy, and I had the 2 girls and my son, and it just got so bad. I just couldn't face the day anymore. And one night in November, one evening, it was about 9:30. I said, "That's it. I'm just gonna slit my wrists, and that's it. I'm done." So I got the kids. They used to. It was a pattern. They go to bed at 10 o'clock or 9ish. I put them to bed, and they go to sleep. They were little. Paul was just a year old, and so they go. I put them to bed, and they were asleep. And I said, "Well, I have to wait till they." It was about 9:30. I have to wait till 10, so they'll be asleep. Then I'll just go in the restroom and end it all. And so I turned the TV on, and Billy Graham was on TV. Now, as a Catholic, I'm not supposed to listen to evangelicals. Every time we would see him on TV, we turned him off. But this time, I turned it on, and I couldn't move, like somebody was holding me down, and he was doing the altar call, and I. This is totally new for me, and so he did the altar call, and he said, "Young lady in your living room, you need to go into your bedroom and ask Jesus into your heart." And he explained it, right? You don't have, you feel like nobody loves you. Your father failed you. Everyone's failed you in your life. Those that you love the most. And I was like stunned. I couldn't even move. And so so I turned the TV off, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And so I said, well, I've tried everything. If this doesn't work, I can still go to plan A. So I went in my bedroom, and I knelt down, and I started confessing like a good Catholic, everything I could think of. It took me like 3 hours. Because I mean, that's all I knew. I didn't know you could just say, Jesus, forgive me for everything I've committed. I didn't know that, and so I confessed every little thing. And then I said, Lord, if I forgot anything, please forgive me. And so I said, I'm sorry. And I'm not kidding you. I felt really light. I felt like a shower of freshness had come in my life, and I was like, oh God, I haven't slept in years. Would you help me sleep tonight? I want to rest. I fell asleep like a baby. I hadn't slept like that ever that I can remember at that time. And so I woke up the next morning. I don't even remember if Jim came in. I don't remember, when he came in, and so I was like totally stunned. When I got up, I looked out the window, and I go, oh my God, the trees look so beautiful. Why do I feel this way? I felt good inside. I feel like peace and joy. And so the Lord reminded me, you asked me in your heart. And so that started my life as a Christian. I wasn't going to a Christian church at the time because all I knew was Catholic. You're taught, at that time you were taught not to associate with any other religion, evangelicals especially. And so I started reading the Bible again. I had read it before, and then I started reading the Bible. I started going to the church, and because I had a lot of a bad relationship with my husband, a bad marriage, I asked the Catholic priest to help me, if he could please help me, and help me with my marriage, give me some counseling. He says, well, I'm sorry, ma'am, but I'm not married, so I don't know what, I could not help you in that area. I was like, okay, if I can't go to my spiritual leader and he can't help me, what am I going to do? And so so one day at the time I was working at the post office, and I was there at the post office, and he comes in, the priest comes in, and he comes and he says, hey, I've got something for you. And he says, here's his Bible, this Gideon Bible. He goes, I pulled one over the Gideons. He said, I sent for 1,000, and they sent me 1,000 Bibles so I could distribute. But he said, I'm charging $3 for a Bible. So he's going to make 3,000 Bibles. I didn't care. I didn't care. Now the priest is selling me a Bible. That means, okay, I have open door to read this evangelical Bible, this, not the Catholic Bible. And so I took it. It was a Living Bible. That's what it was. And I took it, and I mean, I devoured that book, and it started changing me inside. And then I started praying, Lord, and I had other encounters with like the nuns, because my kids, I take the kids to catechism, and I had some issues with them. So I started saying, dear God, you need to give me a church. I don't know what church to go to. You have to lead me to a church. And this elderly couple that was coming to my parents' house, my mom, to visit my mom, they would give her Bible study. They recommended that I go to the Assemblies of God at that time. And so I started going in 1980. Let me see. In 1977, I started attending the Assemblies of God, and we were there I was there 5 years, and it established my foundation. Okay, salvation, the baptism of the Holy Spirit, baptism, water baptism, and healing, those kind of things. The basics. And my husband also got saved during that time in 1977, and we started attending the Assemblies of God for 5 years, because that's all there was. 5 years, about 4 or 5 years later, 4 years later, something like that. The doors started coming to town, and by that time, I was having all kinds of trouble with the Assemblies of God. I was just tired of, it was the same people all the time, back and forth. It was the Spanish and the English assembly. They get together, and it was a lot of controversy and all kinds of issues there. And so, so the door comes, and I said to myself, another church? Is that what we need in this town? Another church? I was so vexed with religion, and I used to say to myself, where's the Church of Acts? What happened to the Church of Acts? Is this all we have? I would see the gossip, the hypocrisy. I was just tired. I was just tired. I was at the end of my Christian life. And then the door comes. And of course, Pastor Lee Stubbs is the one that started the door in Las Vegas, New Mexico. And he goes in there, and he goes and visits our pastor. Okay. And I don't remember why we were all there. I don't know. I can't remember, but I remember him walking and introducing himself. We were outside doing something. And somebody, and I said, who is that? And because he's totally, everybody in Las Vegas, New Mexico knew everybody. So he's just a stranger. He comes in, and he's Anglo, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, who is this? And he goes all happy, and he introduces himself to everybody there. And then later I asked him, he says, oh, it's the pastor of the new church that just opened. I go, oh my God. And that's all we need is another church in this town. And so, but what happened was that my husband was always chasing after Robert Polaco, and he was a young kid then, in his early teens, and he was always chasing after him to get him saved, to say. And so Robert would hide from him, like duck him in the stores and everything. It was cute. And one time in a park, it was really funny. And so we went to they started giving they showed the three big three. It was an outreach. So we went because we were starving to death. So we went over there, to get some ministry in. And so Robert and his wife were there. And so Pastor Lee gives the altar call. We're still in the assemblies. Pastor Lee gives the altar call, and Robert and Jackie go up there. I mean, my husband got up so quick. Of course, it was a baby church, so they didn't have very many altar helpers, and so he prayed with them, both of them. And so later on, we hear that Robert Pollock, a few months later, he's doing really well. I mean, well. He had a Bible study, and we're like thinking, oh my God, and yeah. other kids that we knew, and they started going there. They started raising up in ministry, and we were like, oh wow. I mean, in the assemblies we were in, it was older people. You know what I'm saying? Not so young, and so. So we started at that time. It was like God orchestrated it. So we started praying because we decided that we were not going to stay in the assemblies, but we had nowhere else. We didn't know what to do. we had a choice to go to the Spanish assembly, but that wasn't very appetizing either. So anyway, so we started praying and fasting, and the Lord, for once in my lifetime, I told my husband, you make the decision. You make it. I'm like my brain, my soul, everything's depleted. I have nothing, whatever God tells you to do. I'm just going to pray that God shows you. And so God showed him that we should go to the Assemblies of God. I mean, to the door. And I thank God. I mean, we walked in there. Oh my goodness. It was wall to wall, young people, young men, worshiping God and on fire. You could see the fire. You could see the joy and the excitement about serving Jesus Christ. It wasn't all dull, And I thank God, because I said, oh my God, I found the Church of Acts. I was so excited. And so from there, I was in 1982, we started attending the door. And about a year later, Pastor Richard Ruby came in and took over the church, something like that. And he's the one that discipled us and sent us out the first time. Okay. And any questions?
You said that was the first time that you said the decision is all up to you, to your husband. What contribute to that?
This is embarrassing, but in the Assemblies of God, they train women to be preachers.
Okay.
So I had nothing else, I mean, I don't know nothing, you know what I'm saying? I'm going by what I'm being taught. And so I had aspirations of becoming a pastor. And so I was very, it was strange because when I was growing up, I was very shy and a wallflower, but I got saved in my mouth. As you can tell, I could like to talk, but also I was very domineering. Okay. And Jim was always the quiet type. Okay. And so, of course, I would get anxious and I would take over. And and women are better with words. So, you can take over the conversation, you can take over, and so by that time, but by the time we decided I was tired of the door of the assemblies, I was just empty and unhappy, very unhappy. And I know I read the scriptures that the woman is the helpmate, and I knew all those scriptures. It's the weirdest thing because I went to the door and it was like my brain was empty from everything that I knew in the past that had been taught. And so that was cleansing. I needed that. I needed that so that my husband would raise up. Because if I kept on the way I was, he wouldn't have risen up. I would have not let him, And there's times when we need to be quiet and we need to let God do the work. God shows women things, you feel things, you see things, and you understand things, but that doesn't mean that you go blurt them out. I think God tells us those things or shows us things so that we'll get on our knees and pray and let God do the moving around, moving and speaking and ministering. But I didn't know that, so I would do this ministering, okay? And so when we went to the door, when we made that, I got to that point where I didn't want to. I was just tired. I wasn't going to make no more decisions. Things were not working out, and I was scared that things were falling apart in my life, and I was scared I was going to lose my mind, actually. And so when we went to the door, I made a decision. I'm not going to say nothing. And besides, I used to open my mouth, and things would come out really bad. You know what I'm saying? It was like, oh my God, why did I say that? That was dumb. And Pastor Lee was very gracious with me, I thank God. He recognized who I was and what I was and the background, but he was very gracious. And he let the Holy Spirit deal with me. And he did. The Holy Spirit dealt with me. And so to shut my mouth and let God do the work. And so I thank God for that, because today now we're pastoring.
Wow. Praise God. Yeah. I think a lot of women, we need to hear that, because sometimes it's like you said, it's so easy. We just want to say what we think, but God is, like you're saying, God is telling us that so that we can pray. Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and so how long, and by the time y'all went to the door, so it's kind of like what you're saying that you wanted to commit suicide, and you were tired of your life, but then you get saved, and then you get tired of your life again. And you think,
Yes.
and that was because of, you weren't going by the Bible per se, as far as a woman's place.
Right. Exactly. I didn't understand that part, and so when we got to the door, it's very male oriented, but I liked that, I needed that because it feels secure. You know what I'm saying? There's responsibilities that they're not mine, and there's men there that rise up and take charge. And thank God for that. That's very secure feeling. I can be me. I can be a mother. I can be a helpmate. I can be help at the church, in the church, but I don't have, the responsibility. I didn't have it, but I felt like I did, like I had to do something. And I thank God it's not my responsibility. And so it was very freeing to know that there's actual men that you can trust that'll take care of things. Okay. And it doesn't mean that in Assembly of God there wasn't. It's just that I don't know why I had that mentality. I don't know what happened. You know what I'm saying? That I had to be responsible for everything, which I didn't.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So also, can we hear more about like your discipleship experience or your ministry experience in your home church, like before you guys got sent out, and what made you, want to be a pastor, pastors?
Okay, when Jim wasn't even saved, the Lord spoke to me and said, I'm going to use him to speak my word. I'm going to use him. I couldn't stand him. My husband was, and I said, oh God, look at him. Yeah. He was just a rascal. That's what he was, And one time I was saved already, I would say 2 years before he was. Okay. And so he was taking me to the store on his truck. He loves cars, a fancy truck. And he had that radio on and full blast, some rancheras and stuff. And of course I'm saved, and I don't want to listen to all that garbage, And I'm like, look at him. And he would raise it higher when I get on. He knew he hurt me. And so I said, oh, look at him. Isn't he disgusting? Lord, I'm so sick and tired of him. And so he says, Patsy, one of these days, he's going to preach my word. Okay, something like that he told me. And I'm like, what? I was like, oh my God, where did that come from? So I turned around and told him the music's all on. And I said, you know what the Lord just told me? And he says, he thinks I'm crazy already anyway. So I said, the Lord told me you're going to preach his word. I'm all surprised and awe. And you know what he did? He turned the radio down.
Because just a question that came to my mind is, I'm thinking like, you were already saved for so many years. What was it like to have a husband that wasn't saved, and then for him to get saved,
Yeah, it was very hard. It was very challenging. He would get mad at me to go to church. He didn't want me to go to church. I was going at the time. I started the Assemblies of God by myself. I went about a year. Okay. Alone. And he'd get mad at me on Sunday morning because I get up to go to church. And so one time he told me, here's some money. When you get back from church, you bring me a 6-pack of beer. And I said, I'm not going to bring you beer. I'll put it in the offering. And he says, no. And then he says, if you go, I'm going to beat you up. And I said, I don't care. I'm still going to go, And so he just looked at me and I said, oh God, don't let it hurt too bad. But he didn't. So I left. I said, I'm going to church. I'm sorry. I'm going to church. So I got the kids in the car and we left to church. But I was afraid that he was going to come. I was going to come back and he was going to beat me up. And thank God he didn't. He never did. And so I think Jim only hit me once, and that was it. And he felt so bad about it. And so that was way before we both were saved. And so anyway, but he was just, and so anyway, what was the first question? I forgot.
Okay.
I told you all that.
Yeah. The other question was about, okay, now you are both saved. You went to Assemblies of God. Then your husband prayed and he decided we're going to go to the door. You get to the door. So what was your experience there now?
Okay.
How did you get involved in ministry? What happened,
I knew he was going to be used by God. I knew he had a calling. I knew it, and he knew it. He felt it in his heart, because they already called him a preacher in Las Vegas, even though we were in the Assemblies of God, because everybody that he would see, he would tell them about Jesus. So they would call him the preacher. So we knew we already had that revelation, but we didn't know how it was going to happen. And he did go, when we were Assemblies, he did go to California for 3 months. Paid $3,000, I think we raised, so that he could go to a school of ministry, because that's how the desire for him he wanted to preach so bad. We didn't know how that was going to happen. In the Assemblies of God, he got to go to college. There's no way that he was going to be able to go to college. And so anyway, we go to the door. We didn't know discipleship. We didn't know none of that. And so we started getting discipled. We didn't know we were getting discipled. I mean, we heard about it, and so, but we just started serving. We were older. We are 11 years older. Jim is 13 years older than Pastor Richard, and I'm 11 years older than they are. And so, but it never made a difference. It didn't make a difference that they were so young. Actually, I was excited that they were so young. You know what I'm saying? And they started ministering to us, and this, just this stuff like we do, disciple people, and teaching us little by little, things.
Because technically you guys were just in your 30s at that time, or how old were you?
Yes, we were in our 30s, and so we were in our 30s, early 30s. Jim must have been 34, me 30 or 31, 35, something like that. And so that's when we started going there, and it was really great. I mean, Yolanda was very patient with me. One day she said, "Patsy, don't you think you should start wearing dresses to church?" And I go, "Oh, okay." And I started wearing dresses to church. I didn't know, they were very, very gracious, extremely gracious with us, and we just started watching them and learning from them. I mean, Pastor Richard, greatest preacher in the world, as far as I'm concerned, of course. And so one day one time years later, when we were assisting him here in San Antonio, he says, "Patsy, guess what I found?" And I go, "What?" He said, "I found a box of my old sermons from Las Vegas." And I said, "Wow. Oh, you did, Pastor?" And he said, "Yeah." And I got them and I threw them in the church. I go, "You threw them in the trash! I would have kept them for you." I mean, those sermons are the ones that fed me and ministered to me and helped me so much. I mean, they were treasures. And I said, "I would have kept them, Pastor." He had them in little index cards. And he just was all surprised, like, "Oh my God, I shouldn't have told her." But that was just an experience. But anyway, to me, they were great. They were great. And they helped us go, and then they sent us out. And that was scary. The first church was scary. Española, New Mexico is the capital of lowriders. The girls with the black in their eyes and mean as hornets. You know what I'm saying? And so anyway, that's what we went into there in that city. But God did good things there. God did very good things. We cut our teeth in Española, New Mexico, and by the grace of God, we made it. It was the first church Pastor Ruby sent. We were the first couple he sent, and at the time it was just exciting. It was very exciting. We did learn a lot. We went through a hard time because it was already an established church, and so it was different. It was very, but the challenge was good. And I learned a lot of lessons. I learned a lot. God humbled me a lot, and taught me to be a servant, even though sometimes it was hard. But the Lord was faithful and gave us some good disciples. The Hutchinsons got saved at that time. I don't know if you know Henry Hutchinson, Hoyt Hutchinson. I think Hoyt is still out preaching, and Danny Hutchinson. He's in Las Vegas still serving there. So,
Praise God.
and then Carlos Olivas, he got saved under us too. And so, those are a few. And so, it was a good time. It was a good time.
How long were y'all there?
We were there like about 3 years, almost 4 years. And my oldest daughter graduated from Pkwy, the high school. And then later on, after that, we went to Las Vegas to assist Pastor Fred Ruby. Yeah, I think that's what we did. Yes. We
How long were you?
Assistants for a year in Las Vegas with Pastor Fred Ruby. And our oldest daughter got me in 1989. We took over the church in San Jose, Costa Rica. They sent us. And
so that was your first time being a missionary?
Yes. After Española, we went to San Jose, Costa Rica. And we took our second daughter and our son with us. But our second daughter had just graduated from high school. And so she just stayed about 6 months with us over there. It was very hard to see her take off. We had to leave our oldest here in the United States because she got married, and we left her, and we took the other two with us. And then Wendy, our second, we sent her off. We sent her back home, back to the United States after 6 months because she couldn't get a job or anything over there. She didn't know how to speak Spanish, and so we stayed in Costa Rica for about 4 years also. And it was the best. It was so wonderful. I really enjoyed beautiful Costa Rica is a paradise. And I really enjoyed the people were really kind, and they were on fire. They fight for the bullhorn. They wanted to do when we went out the street, they would fight for the bullhorn. It was so cute. And we had a whole bunch of them. They were just, it's so, my husband always teases us, if you give an old dog a bunch of puppies, and that'll perk up the old dog. And that's the way we were. We had a bunch of little puppies, and they were so on fire and excited, and they were game for anything, any outreach, whatever. They were there. And so it was really cool, to see that. And the church grew. And then we took the church from Pastor Jesus Vicera. And then after 4 years, Pastor Jesus Vicera took it over again. By that time, we had planted one church, I believe we had planted. And we had married several of those young men. They were all single, and they were married. My husband married them. So it was a good time. I enjoyed it very much. You give up. When I went, I was a little concerned because one of the questions I asked, do you have Clorox over here? I'm sorry. One of the questions I asked, is there Clorox in Costa Rica? They go, yes, there's Clorox in Costa Rica. Okay, I'll go. No, I'm kidding. And that's a joke. And so anyway, we went, and you go over there, and the unexpected, but the good thing is, though, there was an established church. So that wasn't so hard because there was an established church. I mean, we did have the, issues with those that, of course, they missed their pastor, but you're gentle with them, you're considerate with them, and you realize that they're still loyal. And thank God that they're loyal, because that means eventually when you win them over, they're going to be loyal to you, and they just have a loyal heart. And so you just love them where they're at, and that's what we did. We just loved them where they were. And it was just a wonderful experience. So I looked, that was a great experience, Costa Rica. From Española, it was really hard in Española. It was first church, and the people are different. I don't know now. I mean, but the people that were there at that time, they were new converts also. You know what I'm saying? And so they still had a little bit of the world in them. And I wasn't part of that culture, that lowrider culture, and so it was sort of a challenge. But God still worked, and still, you can't outgive God. You put yourself out there and you trust Him, and He'll do the work. If you just have a tender heart and a willing heart to be used by God, and an obedient heart, and of course you have to humble yourself a lot of humble pie. but it's worth it because souls get saved, and that church is still going forward. Thank God. Yes. Okay.
Yes,
Any
thank
more
God.
questions?
Thank God. Yes, I know because I know you. I know that you've gone through some health issues with your knee.
Yeah.
Where was that?
In 1982, that's the year that we joined the door. It was like about April. We were in a motorcycle accident. We're still in the assemblies. We were passing out flyers or invitations to it was a church gathering. And this lady made a U-turn. We were in a little bike. We were going like about 35 miles an hour, but the lady made a sharp U-turn right in front of us. She was on the side of the road. She had no stoplights, so we didn't know the car was on. So we keep going, and this lady made a sharp U-turn right in front of us because she didn't see us through the rearview mirror, and we hit the car full blast right on the side. I flew off the back, and thank God I had my helmet because that saved my brain. And but I broke the femur completely off the knee. The knee and the femur broke off completely. I almost lost, the doctor almost had to amputate, but it was so bad, the break, but he saved it.
Wow.
He saved that leg. Thank God. It's all deformed and full of, scars. But thank God I got my leg, I didn't have to. And so that's how I started going to we went to the door. I mean, we had already made the decision. And so we went in April 1982, we paid our first tithe check to the door. So that's why I know it's really, and so
And
anyway.
that was all during your knee?
And I had just gotten out of the hospital. I stayed about 14 days in the hospital because of the surgery and recuperation and everything. And so for 30 years in 2013, I had a lot of hardware, plates and pins and screws for, I guess because of the bone starts getting shrinking. All the hardware there started getting really loose, and I mean I could really feel it. It was like everything was coming apart inside. And so finally, by the grace of God, there was a program in San Antonio, that hospital program where I could get a knee replacement. And so I went in 2013, and they took all the hardware out. And in 2014, they did a complete replacement on my knee. But for 30 years, I was in pain for 30 years. I mean, just because, they had put the pins and everything, it was very painful. I'd sleep with the pain. I'd walk with the pain. I mean, that pain was always there. It was really a chronic pain. And so, but still, despite that, the Lord gave me the strength to pastor, to go overseas, and to do what I needed to do. Sometimes I would cry. I couldn't sleep sometimes, and I would cry, and I think, God, you've got to give me the strength. I've got to do this. I can't do it if you don't give me the strength. And he would, and so, and I see some people, some young women nowadays, they got a headache. Oh, I can't go, Sister Patsy, because I got this headache. I don't say anything. I just like, okay, sister, we'll be praying for you. But I'm like thinking, yeah, I went 30 years to church with chronic pain, and I still was there, But it's not for my glory, It's because if you want to, you'll do it. You see what I'm saying? There are times. I understand. There are times you just can't do it. There was times I couldn't, and I understand that. But if there's a possibility, there's no excuse. You know what I'm saying? And so there has to be that understanding. And do you want to do this or not? You know what I'm saying? And so, and I understand there are situations that you can't, but 80% of the time you can. It's just an excuse. You know what I'm saying? I know experience, okay? I'm talking about myself.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that was my history with my knee. Now, after the knee surgery,
you were in Costa Rica, and y'all were there for 4 years. And then where did y'all go after that?
After that, we came to San Antonio to assist Pastor Ruby. Okay, we assisted him for let's see, assistant. So wait a minute. Costa Rica. In 1993, we came to San Antonio. We assisted Pastor Ruby. And in 1997, we took over the church in Brownsville, Texas.
Okay. I have another question for you that I think sometimes that women, we kind of think about, because when we went missionaries, this was something like with your children, having to leave them behind. What would you say were some of the struggles, and how did God help you with that?
Oh, yeah. When we went to Costa Rica, we had to leave our daughter. It was very hard. I'm not kidding. It was very hard. At that time, we didn't have, like we have now, the Zoom and the email and the texting, all that. We didn't have that. So it cost I think it was about $3 a minute or something like that to call, something really outrageous, expensive. And so you call once in a while, once a month maybe, and unless they would call you, it would be a different story, but it was a challenge. And I just had to, what saved me is that I learned to pray. I learned to get a hold of God. It would give me peace, and I knew that He was taking care of my children. Okay. And so I really, even to this day, it's prayer. That's what sustains me, and that's what keeps me. And reading His Word, just hiding it in your heart, and making it real in your life. You know what I'm saying? And that's what sustained me and has kept my children. My children are doing good. The 6 months later, we sent Wendy back home, and about a year later, she got married, and she had our first granddaughter. And I said, "Oh Lord, I'm never going to be able. If I'm so far away, my granddaughter's not going to know me." And even at a few months, she knew me. You know what I'm saying? It was like she reckoned. It's like I don't know what it was, but it seemed we connected.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really wonderful. God is faithful. He will, and you know how the scripture says that you give up your family, you give up your loved ones, He will give you 100-fold. He did. I have children in Costa Rica, people that consider me their mom, you know what I'm saying? And so I always had somebody, you know what I'm saying, that would take care of me, or, be concerned for me, or love me, you know what I'm saying? And so I've never been empty. No matter where you go, God will provide for you. And my children were fine. My children are fine. They're doing good, all three of them. They're already in their, they're already older. They're mature adults, but they're doing good, and I really think just because you're not there for them, they'll do all right. Actually, I think it was better for them that we were not there. They can take their life and run with it, not have mom and dad there in the way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And a quick break right now. We're excited to hear more about your story, Miss Patsy Peña. Yes. And the rest of the conversation is going to be for our premium subscribers. So there's a link to subscribe in the show notes below. And every dollar goes to world evangelism. We don't keep a dime, so we appreciate that. And we'll be right back.
You're my unsung hero, and I sing this song for you.